You're listening to Radio Flange Goblet, home to the Drunk Skating Puffin Hour and How Many Socks Can You Lick, hosted by Nigel Havers. Coming up now, though, it's the After Movie Diner, which this week comes from the all-new novelty inflatable floating restaurant, Le Mistake. Today's special is something called a hairy omelette, but may I suggest you try the braised mongoose instead. It may taste like old crap, but it stops all the snakes from stealing your fries. Previously on the After Movie Diner. Having travelled to the future to stop the evil gargantuan from monopolising all the turnips, our roguish hero Alan has fallen under the seductive spell of robotic whore Betty Pencil, who is secretly brainwashing him by using various smells she manufactures out of some old imperial mints and some loose emergency cabbage Alan keeps in his satchel, and draining all his phlegm while he sleeps to power a giant arc reactor, which is the only way she'll be able to reach the sun and finally control the world's production and consumption of citrus fruits. Meanwhile, back in 1986, Franklin Purslips is trying to seize control of vast AmeriCorp Big Company, but Haviland and Shed already know about the secret photos of him and their Aunt Bantam playing a game of strip cribbage while a tied-up Neil Diamond is abused by an overly enthusiastic dwarf in a fluffy pig costume. They plan, while in a jacuzzi having a power luncheon with some overweight ducks who are high up in Rupert Murdoch's company, to release the pictures at the annual Bring a Bottle, Spreadsheet and Shotgun Raffle Gathering Affair coming next month. And where now for Gladys Knight and the Pips? All this and more tonight on the show The Daily Thigh, once described as not unlike waking up underneath a sack of dead bats.
This is James Glickenhaus, and you're listening to the After Movie Diner.
Rather fierce for a little guy. You wouldn't think so after all that pudding, but my goodness, he could go like the Clappers. Really sharp teeth as well. Hi, hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the After Movie Diner, the only podcast in existence that gives you not just awesome movies and movie discussions, but interviews with the people behind those films, music about those films, and comedy. Yes, this is the podcast where you get absolutely everything all in one. So don't ever touch that dial. Keep subscribing, keep downloading. And while you're at it, if you're on iTunes or Stitcher or YouTube or anywhere where the podcast is posted, please rate and review us. If you can't be bothered to rate and review us, at least share it. If you see the link go up on Facebook, if you see the link go up on Twitter, share the link. But please, 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 if you have 5 minutes, rate and review us. If you're feeling more generous, why not sponsor the show on patreon.com? That's www.patreon.com/aftermoviediner. We've had some fantastic patrons so far, and I can't thank them enough. The latest addition is Mr. Robert Long from Baltimore, so I'd like to say a big, big, big thank you to Robert Long for his donation to the show. Go over to patreon.com/aftermoviediner and become a patron of the show today. We would be excessively grateful, and it really costs next to nothing. But as I say, if you haven't got the money, please, please, please show your appreciation by rating and reviewing the show on iTunes, Stitcher, TalkShoe, YouTube, wherever the show is posted. And if you can't be bothered to do that, then just at least share the link when you see it go up on Facebook. It would mean the world to us, and it would get more people listening. So, what have we got for you this show? Well, this show is our James Glickenhaus extravaganza. I mean, I couldn't be more excited about this. I really, genuinely couldn't be more excited about this. I'm a huge, huge fan of his work. For people who don't know who he is, for my money, one of the main action director auteurs who are making movies in New York and around New York, but also global because he travels all around the world as well to make films. But he shoots New York like no one else. He manages to get away with filming stunts in New York like nobody else did. He was primarily active around the 80s and the 90s. The films you've probably heard of is The Exterminator, Jackie Chan's The Protector. You've got Shakedown with Peter Weller. You've got McBain with Christopher Walken. We've covered some of the films previously on The Diner. We also recently covered Jackie Chan's The Protector over on Dr.Action, the Kick-Ass Kid. Hopefully the interview and the show in general will just inspire you to go out, get his films, watch his films, and become as enthralled with them as I am. He is absolutely a phenomenal director, and we have him on the show today. I cannot be more excited to play this for you right away. And then after that, we have a discussion about his films and general sort of 80s, 90s New York stuff coming up with Dr.Action, none other than Dr.Action or Doc Paul Crowson coming up after the interview. So that's what you've got to look forward to this week on the show. It's absolutely jam-packed, and then stick around for the music at the end. Thanks ever so much, as always, for listening to the After Movie Diner. And now it is my pleasure and honor and just... I can't quite believe it. It's incredible to have on the show none other than Mr. James Glickenhaus.
Yeah, hi, Jim here. How are you?
Hi, Jim. I'm very good, sir. This is John Cross, and thank you ever so much for being on the After Movie Diner with us.
Yep, absolutely.
So just a few questions. Your films seem full of boundless and boyish imagination, especially when it comes to incredible action sequences. Was that something you loved in books and movies growing up? Is that why you got into the industry?
Yeah, I always liked movies. I mean, when I was growing up and started looking at films, they were very visual. I mean, some of the first films I really liked were Sergio Leone's spaghetti westerns, like The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, where he told his story with images rather than words. And, I think there was a period there where filmmakers really told their story visually. I mean, Steve McQueen's movie Le Mans, I don't think there was any dialogue for 20 minutes into the film. Yeah. And so it was a great time. I mean, the other interesting thing was there were special effects, but there really wasn't, CGI. So if you wanted to blow something up, you had to blow something up. If you wanted to do a stunt, a real human sort of had to do it. I mean, yeah, there were tricks and harnesses and decelerators and things like that. But generally, when you made a film, you actually had to film something, as opposed to now, you watch a movie and it's just impossible to tell almost, what's real, what's CGI. And I think that, it moved from, because you were using real human beings, you had to do things that really were doable, to, a guy can pick up a pebble and throw it across the Atlantic Ocean and poke someone's eye out in Paris.
Right.
Things are a bit different.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, in fact, I was going to say, I think the way that you shot New York, and actually more importantly, the things that you got away with filming in New York, is sort of one of the things that stands out about your films, along with the realistic stunts. What was it like producing movies here back then? And would it even be possible to film half the stuff for real that you did back then today?
I don't think it really would be. I mean, that was a magic time when people really let you film stunts on location. If you look at Steve McQueen's Bullet, or if you look at The French Connection, these were films that were filmed on location, and the car chases were real. I mean, there were real cars driving on city streets that they let you shut down a couple of blocks at a time. And do stunts on. I mean, Shakedown, frankly, I think was, a bit of history that will never be repeated. I mean, we shot 42nd Street between Broadway and 7th Avenue from midnight till, I think, 6 in the morning for 4 nights. I don't think they'd ever let you do that. No. I mean, we really shot it on 42nd Street. And in those days, also, you could steal a lot more scenes, meaning in Exterminator, Ginty walked through Times Square, and we would have a couple of actors who would interact with him or call things out, but a lot of the people were just the people who were there. So it was really, it was a little bit more of a documentary feel. I mean, if you look at Taxi Driver for some of the films that were shot there. Those are really shot in New York. Now, the big action set pieces that you do involve so much CGI these days that, if you want to show someone destroying Times Square, well, obviously they're not going to let you destroy Times Square. So it's much different, I think, than when I did it, and I miss those days. I also miss films like that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think definitely for someone like myself, that's generally and genuinely the appeal, or a lot of the appeal of those movies is just, when you see Christopher Walken at the top of the Brooklyn Bridge, that's Christopher Walken on top of the Brooklyn Bridge. I mean, that's incredible, or Jackie Chan in the speedboat going down the East River. It's that kind of thing that gives you a thrill because it was done for real. And I think it adds so much more to it than like you say, the disposable films almost of today. And also around about that time, you're working with a kind of great, fantastically creative group of filmmakers who are using New York, much like you are. People like Bill Lustig, Larry Cohen, Frank Henenlotter, and so on. What was it like working with all of them in the city at that time?
Well, it was really a lot of fun. I mean, in those days, if you made a film that had commercial aspect to it, you could raise the money, you could go to Europe, you could sell the European rights in Cannes, you could cover your budget, and you could find a distributor. And in those days, they still had theaters that would run films like that, And video was sort of a secondary thing. I mean, when I made Exterminator, there really was no video. No one even knew what it was. It went out eventually on video and did well, but films had to perform in the theater. And those were really great days. And the other thing is that we all could kind of help each other a little bit. We all knew each other and worked together and helped each other out. And so it was really a cool thing working in New York in those days and, producing films for Frank Henenlotter and Bill Lustig and guys like that. And I enjoyed that very much. I think the thing that changed is that the stakes became so high that the studios were really the only ones who could afford to make movies and have a loss. If they make 10 films and 3 are disasters, well, the other 7 would bail them out. But if you were an independent, you had to, make money every time you made a film, or you couldn't raise money for your next one.
Yeah.
And that's a big difference, I think, that happened. Now, there were some guys, like Bob and Harvey Weinstein, who were started as independents. I mean, they wrote and directed a film, The Burning, and I worked with them on that, helped them on that one, and, they helped me on when I filmed The Soldier. But they got, they went into distribution and got films that made a lot of money, and that enabled them to really become sort of a studio and what they are today. But, for every independent who was successful that way, there were a huge number of small independent companies that just fell by the wayside, unfortunately. And some that got gobbled up by the majors, like, Bob Shea and New Line Cinema, which was certainly a lot different company when Bob was, an independent making, Wes Craven films, and to when he got acquired by Warner Brothers, and then eventually got, Warner's decided they didn't want him anymore, and they just paid him off, and that was the end of it.
Yeah. No, it is. I mean, it is a real shame because I think, especially doing the show and revisiting a lot of those films from the 70s and 80s, there is definitely something lacking now, that there's a visceral or a realistic or some kind of quality now that just doesn't quite pay off in the same way anymore. And therefore, I think a lot of those films, as popular as they were back then in the grindhouses or the drive-ins or whatever, I think they're gaining again in popularity now. I mean, someone like Shout Factory is doing really well, putting out Blu-rays of all of them and things like that. So it's interesting to see the internet kind of picking up on them, I think. So your films have wonderfully eclectic casting choices. Robert Ginty, Christopher Walken in McBain, Danny Aiello in The Protector, things like this. What was the fun of casting for you? And there are any stories working with any of these fine actors on set?
Well, yeah, I mean, the casting was a very fun part of it. We were very lucky. We had a casting director who's still active in the business today, Donna DeSeta, And Donna was and is a very intelligent woman who knew a lot about acting. Her sister actually is Bernadette Peters, and Donna knew a lot of Broadway plays and a lot of actors. And she found us a lot of actors on Broadway who really had never been in a film, who wanted to be in a film, and brought them to audition. And I think I credit her with really making me understand how important it was to work with interesting and creative actors. The thing with Ginty was, we didn't want to have the stereotypical Chuck Norris, tough guy hero who you looked at and you realized could beat everybody up in the world. We wanted Bob to be an everyman who just got pushed too far. And I think that he was very good in that. I first saw Bob in Coming Home, and that's where I really thought he was the right person for it, and I really enjoyed working with him. And the same thing happened with Steve James. I mean, Steve was originally came in to audition for the part of the bartender in The Exterminator. And when I saw him read, I said, wow, this guy's really good. And originally I'd written The Exterminator, and The Exterminator's friend was a Spanish guy. Ramos was the character. And I looked at Steve and I said, well, why couldn't Steve be his friend? And, we'll just change the script and make him a black guy. And that's what I did. Many people years later said, oh, it was amazing. You had this black-white friendship and all of that. And, I'd like to take the credit for having thought of it, but I really didn't. I mean, Steve was a good actor. I hired him. I didn't care if he was black, white, or green.
Yeah.
And that's what happened with that.
No, and it's a fantastic film, and obviously Steve James was in The Soldier and also McBain again then with you when you made further films.
Yeah, and I like using the same guys. And I mean, to be honest with you, a lot of my films, in my mind, were sort of the same types of stories. I mean, McBain, it's not that they were sequels in the sense of it, but they were about the same thing. They were about guys who were a little bit lost. They had come back from Vietnam, perhaps, or Desert Storm, and they were lost. And they only sort of related to people who had been there and were often called on to take on these adventures and things. And I like those characters. And I also like trying to make films that weren't completely predictable. I mean, I originally was going to make Exterminator, and it had an ending that I had the Exterminator, he got killed at the end. And the Japanese distributor who read the script said, you really shouldn't have this guy killed. I mean, he's a hero. And at the time, I said, well, yeah, I think he's a hero, but I don't know that everybody is going to completely think he's a hero. But you know what? You're right. So I was always like trying to listen and get ideas from a lot of different people and just to be a storyteller. I mean, I was trying to make films that told a story, and that's really what interested me.
Yeah, that's what I love about them. They have that strong, anti-hero or hero storyline that kind of roots all the action and explosions and everything in something. It's not just frivolous, which is the best thing about them. Were there any films that you wanted to make at that time or actors you wanted to work with that you never kind of got the chance to back then?
It's interesting. Steven Seagal saw Shakedown and really wanted me to direct a film for him. And in retrospect, I wish I had done it. I was in the midst of another project, so the timing didn't work out. But I thought he was kind of an interesting guy. And I also think he was someone who, if he had had a little different kind of direction, perhaps, might have become a more nuanced star. The thing with, look, I mean, Walken is an acting genius. I mean, he won an Academy Award, whatnot. But there are some guys who got a little trapped in action films and, could have gone on and done more interesting stuff. I mean, Bruce Lee was an incredible karate guy, but he was a very good actor, and unfortunately he died way too young. But I think Bruce is someone, because he sort of became friends with Steve McQueen and James Gardner, that could have gone on to do some very interesting stuff. And I was always looking for that type of actor. Sometimes I was lucky enough to work with people like Scott Glenn or, Chris Walken, who obviously were very accomplished actors. But there were a lot of other people who I tried to play against the grain of who they were. And I found that interesting.
Yeah, because I think both Walken and Sam Elliott have gone on record in the future sort of saying that they weren't into action stuff and they didn't like guns and things like that, and yet they're both sort of excellent in the respective films that they did for you, where they're both playing kind of very action-driven roles, which was interesting when I heard them say that.
Yeah, I think Sam, particularly enjoyed working with me. Afterwards, he actually asked me to direct a Western, and I was more than willing to do it, but the financing just didn't come together. I like Sam, and the thing about my characters were they weren't complete heroes. They had flaws.
Yeah.
And not every actor, interestingly, wanted to do that. I ran into a lot of opposition from some people who just didn't like the way I'd written it, because they said, well, some parts of this guy are really nasty. And I said, well, people are like that. It's not black and white. It's shades of gray. So some people I didn't get to work with, and others I did.
And you wrote most of the movies you made. Did you consciously only want to be making the stories that you wanted to tell? Was that part of the appeal, or is that just how it worked out?
A little bit of both. I did enjoy writing, and there were stories I wanted to tell. And, I was offered scripts, and, the thing about traditional Hollywood is I had an agent, Sid Mengers was my agent, and there were Hollywood films. And I was involved in them at different stages, and they fell apart. And then later, even they got revolved. There was a film with the same name, The Soldier. I think Kurt Russell eventually was in it. But initially, David Geffen was producing it, and he was trying to get Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, and I was attached to it as a director. And then that didn't fall apart. And years later, another group came and did it. But I didn't like sitting around, so I always would write a script, and I tried to get a Hollywood film going, but if it didn't happen, I didn't care. I just went and did my own thing.
Yeah. And looking back now over your movie career, what were the highlights for you? Were there any stories that stand out in particular, maybe the one you haven't told before, or one that you particularly cherish?
Well, I think that the hardest thing as a filmmaker is you write the script, you spend a long time shooting it, editing it, living with it. You see the film in bits and pieces. You see the rushes, the assemblies, the rough cut, the fine cut. And by the time you're all done, you're so close to it, it's very hard to really see it through other people's eyes. But when I made The Exterminator, and Avco Embassy distributed it, I don't think anybody had any idea as to really how powerful that film was in a movie theater. And the first day that it opened in New York, I went to 42nd Street, and I just went up to the box office, and I said, I'm the director. Can I come in and watch the crowd? And they said, really, you're the director? And, I took out my license and showed them the name, and they said, all right. And when I walked into the Lyric Theater, and I saw that it was completely full, and the reaction of the crowd, and then I drove in my VW up to the Bronx, and I went to the Whitestone Drive-In, which was still a drive-in, and saw that was completely full. I realized that this thing, took on a life of its own. You have to remember, that's when movie tickets cost $2.
Yeah.
And its opening week in New York City, it was like, it grossed just in New York, I think well over $1 million. So if you say, well, take a $10 ticket, that would be it would be like $100 million opening if it was nationally.
Yeah.
Because New York's about a 10% market. So it was a powerful film, and people really liked it. I mean, they really, really responded to it. And so that was kind of an amazing experience to see that. But I love traveling. I love shooting on locations. I love, shooting in the Berlin Wall and Hong Kong, the ski scenes and things like that. I enjoy the travel and going to South Africa on press tours and meeting people. The one thing that I think in the film business is people always worry about or care about the result. How successful is the film? How much money does it make? What's my next film when I work with bigger stars? And you have to realize that making films, this is your life every day, and you better enjoy it because the journey is much more important than the destination.
Yeah, completely. Definitely. And like you say, that there aren't many filmmakers necessarily that 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line, their films by a certain group of the population are still going to be as cherished as stuff like The Exterminator and things. And do you think that's the movie, that's the one that you're going to be remembered for, The Exterminator? That's the one that stands out for you? Or do you think something more like The Protector, because it's a Jackie Chan vehicle and so on, is a sort of a bigger movie? Or what do you think?
I don't know. I mean, I think The Exterminator is going to be around for a long time. I think that, I'm very proud of films like Shakedown, which I think really had an interesting story.
Yeah, I love that one.
And got and some interaction. I love making a film with my son, Slaughter of the Innocents. I mean, that one still plays and does well. I don't know. I'm just amazed that 34, as you say, 30 years down the road, people are still interested in these films, still watching them, and that gives me great enjoyment. And frankly, I'm kind of encouraged by young people who are now going out and sort of doing what I did, making very low budget films by themselves with a small group of friends and editing them. And I'm actually, writing a script, and I'm going to make a film like that someday, just with a small crew and a small group of people again, just because I think it's a cool thing to do and it's something I want to do. But I look at Hollywood today, and you look at this summer, and the studios are amazed that the box office gross is just down. And I mean, at a certain point, the studios have become their own worst enemy. I mean, they make these films that ultimately aren't about anything, and they wonder why the audiences just find something else to do. I mean, the effects are spectacular and whatnot, but I think that the films that stick with you are stories. And I also think that you can make a film even today on location that's very powerful. I mean, I recently saw a film I didn't see in the theaters, but I saw on DVD and Blu-ray, Captain Phillips. And that's a very powerful film because it's just shot on location. It's shot on that boat and in the lifeboat. And there's no super special effects. I mean, you don't see Captain America walking on a shield across water. I mean,
Yeah, completely. Well, I think there's an action guy out there at the moment, Jason Statham, who's making a lot of movies on location, sort of $20, $30 million movies rather than the big $150 million movies. And he's doing a lot of his own stunts and a lot of there is a slight wave of that happening. He did a movie called Safe, which shot part in New York and part in Philadelphia, which has a lot of that vibe from those old movies. I mean, it doesn't happen every time out the gate, but there is the odd one or two. But like you say, something like Captain Phillips is obviously a great example of that. Well, look, the last question I had, I mean, you mentioned it briefly, you were thinking of writing a script and you're thinking of making a movie again, but it was just basically, we would love to see you return. You've obviously thought about filmmaking again as a possibility. Do you have a timeline on that? Do you know where it would shoot and what you would do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very involved, now that I'm sort of semi-retired from all business, I'm very involved in my car thing where we're designing, engineering, and racing cars in Europe, and that's going to sort of come to a culmination at the 24 Hours of Nürburgring in May of next year. And I hope to finish the script by then and to try to get it together soon thereafter. And also, it's strange, out of the blue, I do get calls from people in Hollywood who come across one of my films and, wonder if I would consider things, and I would. So it's not impossible that something could come that direction, and, someone could get in touch with me, and, I'd be willing to do something like that, and I have the time to do it now. When I was, involved full-time in the financial world, I really didn't, and then the car thing sort of took on a life of its own. We won the world championship in alternative energies, and then we were able to sell some cars, and now we're building this new race car. I'm hopeful that I'm going to be able to do it, and that it would be sooner rather than later.
Well, excellent. And we hope that when you do, we'd love to talk to you again. That would be fantastic. We'd love to see the film. And if you need any help promoting it or anything like that, you let us know, because we're big fans, and we'd love to see another James Glickenhaus movie. I can tell you that very much. Thank you for being on the show, sir. You blew stuff up better than anyone in the business, and it's been my honor to talk to you today. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you, guys. Bye-bye.
One thing I promise not to do in this courtroom is to pretend to you that I am representing Snow White for a client.
An overworked lawyer.
Once upon a time, all I planned to do was play the tenor sax. Forever.
An undercover cop.
This gun is clean. No serial numbers.
They're up against a city where the bad guys have taken over.
My client will make bail.
And the good guys are the worst of all.
You cops, you're the best that money can buy.
$50K a month in evidence disappears. Plan on taking down an army?
I don't know yet.
Hang on tight, partner.
Oh, I see. The ride gets rougher than this.
You betcha.
It's just the way I like it.
You better watch out.
I can roll with anything you put out, buddy.
What were you looking for?
Can you handle this, or is this too real for you?
Peter Weller.
You're gonna miss me when I'm gone, babe.
Sam Elliott.
Oh, I know what you're thinking. I'm old and slow.
Shakedown. Whatever you do, don't call the cops.
This week I am exorbitantly happy and broadly moist to be introducing back onto the show to talk all about James the Glickenhaus. It's none other than my cohort in all things action, Doctor of Action himself, Dr.Action. Hello, sir. Welcome back onto the After Movie Diner.
How are you?
I'm very good, sir. I'm very good. And yourself?
I'm all right.
And are you excited to talk about Master of Explosions, James Jimmy the Glickenhaus?
The Glickmeister himself. The Glickmeister General.
Yes, the Glickmeister General, who we have, over my variety of podcasts, touched on quite a few times. I mean, we covered Shakedown Blue Jean Cop as part of our Woods and Weller series. I covered the Exterminator along with Vigilante as part of our New York 80s vigilante films way back towards the beginning of the diner. And we just recently covered The Protector on Dr. Action and the Kick-Ass Kid. So I don't want to necessarily go into each of the movies in depth and go through the plots and the reviews and things like that, because you can find out on previous shows. But I wouldn't mind talking about just your experience with James Glickenhaus and your feelings on his films. I've just remembered we also covered McBain as part of one of our B-movie marathons in an early show. So actually, most of the movies we're going to be talking about today we have covered previously, but this is a sort of 2 years later look back at where we're at with Glickenhaus, and obviously we've got the wonderful interview with the man that we just heard. So just wanted to tack on a conversation with you, sir.
Excellent.
So, first Glickenhaus movie you can remember? What first popped into your world, sir?
The first Glickenhaus movie I saw was The Protector with Jackie Chan.
Nice.
What we covered the other week.
And which we decided is just a bloody good film.
It is a great film.
Yeah.
It is a great film. The fact Jackie Chan went off and did his own edit of it is just one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard.
Right. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, he understands what he had to do to sell it in Asia, which was like to tone down the nudity and bring up the action. But
definitely, but he was trying to crack America.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, it makes no sense when he was trying to, move over to the Western eyes, Western sensibilities, and it's very good that sort of Golden Harvest looked at James Glickenhaus and saw that he has a very Western sensibility, because of all the film directors sort of making movies in the 80s that aren't making the Rambos and the Commandos and whatever, but are working on a sort of B tier. Glickenhaus is up there in terms of knowing how to deliver that Hollywood thing of, good buddy characters, lots of explosions, lots of car chases, lots of action. But I think Glickenhaus has one thing up his sleeve that you don't get with other people, and that's his connection with New York City and what he was able to shoot of New York City that other directors didn't get to do, or didn't ask to do, or didn't think to do.
Yeah, he was. He does belong to that, that little New York film crew, sort of the late 70s, early 80s, where they got so much out of New York City. I was watching Blue Jean Cop earlier.
Yeah.
And sort of like, I said to my wife, we're watching it, I says, where do you find somewhere in New York with loads of rubble?
Yeah.
If you watch most films around that were made in New York, by more established directors that never show that.
The only other people who I can think who have done it is Scorsese in Taxi Driver.
Yes.
And Gilliam in Fisher King.
Yeah. They decided to show the sort of parts of New York that were off limits. The New York that the mayor probably didn't want you to see. Right.
Also, in the Fisher King, a lot of it is contrived. I mean, by the time the Fisher King was filmed, and if there were bums down by the river, they weren't bums in the way that Gilliam was representing. And in the same way that in Blue Jean Cop, where they have that car chase that goes right through the cardboard village, there were bums, but I'm sure they weren't like, oh, look, we've built this lovely little cardboard town where we're all living happily and, whatever. Because, I mean, the homeless that I see around New York now, it's far more ramshackle than that. You know what I mean? It's far more sort of... desperate looking than that.
When I was there with you, I think the most time I saw them was on the tubes.
On the subways,
the subway, they just sort of lived on the subway.
There's a certain look to Glickenhaus's films. There's a certain aesthetic or element that is sort of isn't available elsewhere, other than, like you say, that kind of group of New York filmmakers from the 80s, which I would say on my recent list would include Bill Lustig, who did the Maniac Cop series, Vigilante, Maniac, movies like that. Probably Abel Ferrara to some extent.
Yep.
Frank Henenlotter, who obviously did the Basket Case series. Larry Cohen, who doesn't exclusively work in New York, but made some very pivotal, like Cue the Winged Serpent and God Told Me To, and obviously Hell Up in Harlem and films like that. So, Larry Cohen's career is far greater. And in fact, I just found out there's actually a Cohen documentary about to roll into production, because he does kind of span... Cohen spans 40 decades in both TV and movies and so on and so forth.
Different genres.
Different genres and everything. But if you watch any kind of B-movie action stroke horror films made in the 80s, some of the greatest ones are made by those people. And I know that, like, a lot of Maniac Cop 2 and 3 were filmed in LA for New York, but... there are pivotal sequences that were filmed in New York that really kind of, especially in the first one, that really sort of bring it out. And my feeling is that The Exterminator, The Protector, Shakedown, and McBain, the scenes in those movies that take place in New York were seemingly shot there. I mean, you know, especially stuff like in McBain, the top of the Brooklyn Bridge, and you get the East River chase and The Protector, and in The Exterminator you've got I imagine most of it was filmed in the Bronx, but obviously you get the extensive meatpacking district and all that, you know.
Yeah, 42nd Street, the sleaze houses.
Right. The 42nd Street, flop houses and stuff. And while Taxi Driver, the Scorsese movie, almost romanticizes it, which is kind of the irony, because Taxi Driver is all about, like, get these scum off the streets, and it's not really till the very end of the movie that
everything turns to shit.
That it kind of gets gritty.
Yeah.
But the scenes of his cab driving around, or even when he confusingly takes Sybil Shepherd to the porno theatre, it still feels like romanticized and glossy. You know what I mean?
I mean that still looks like a New York that I sort of look at and think, I'd still like to go there and have a look round.
Yeah.
You watch The Exterminator when he goes into that brothel and he's negotiating for the clean bed sheets.
Yeah.
I just look at that and think, I could catch gonorrhea just walking in there.
Yeah, and the fact that they had a whorehouse in The Exterminators for small children is sort of just one of the most disgusting things. That you just, I mean, you know, you might at the very, very back of your mind assume it goes on somewhere, but you just don't like to think of it actually, existing in a Western city. You know, and I don't mean to be kind of stereotypical, but you assume that kind of stuff maybe happens in, I don't know, darkest areas of Thailand or somewhere, but you don't assume that it happens happened in New York City.
No, you don't.
Especially not with that fat little balding guy with his soldering iron.
How creepy is that guy? The main point of the interview with James Glickenhaus should be, where did you find him?
Yeah, and was that his towel? Did he just show up in his towel?
Was he supposed to be in the film?
Yeah. Did you just find him there? No, I mean, I'm fascinated about how they filmed all this stuff. But I think if something separates Glickenhaus, it's that. There are a few other films by other filmmakers. I mean, we covered The Last Dragon, and I think The Last Dragon has a real kind of New York-y vibe of that era that's similar. Obviously more kind of campy, but certainly in its street scenes is very similar to a kind of Glickenhaus or Lustig movie. I think that there's a film called Times Square about two kind of runaway girl punks who kind of perform in a band and befriend a DJ played by Tim Curry, who does like nighttime DJing over Times Square, that has a sort of, again, although it's got a kind of 80s Brat Pack feel, it's also got a kind of 80s scummy New York punk kind of, pop socks and bandanas wrapped around hats and girls just want to have fun type vibe as well. Yeah. So there are other movies. I just have singled out that if you're talking New York filmmakers that aren't Woody Allen or Martin Scorsese, who are the two that most people will turn to, I think Glickenhaus, Lustig, Ferrara, Henenlotter, and Cohen are kind of your go-tos for me anyway, for kind of B movies in New York.
I mean when I want a sort of romantic vision of New York, I'll watch Annie Hall, Hannah and her sisters, and I watch that. I go, God, I'd love to go there. Yeah. And then when I sort of want to walk on the wild and dark side, I'll stick in The Exterminator or Basket Case.
Yeah.
And then, scare myself shitless.
Because again, that hotel in Basket Case, just like the brothel in The Exterminator or the cinema that's covered in crack pipes in Shakedown. Because he's like, Peter Weller goes, where's all this glass coming from? And Sam Elliott's like, it's all the crack pipes on the floor.
Another director who filmed New York really well in the 70s was Michael Winner for Death Wish.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, no, there are. I think if you were, when New York was more run down in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, I think there are probably a lot of other movies that you could point to. And I think for me, it's just that maybe Henenlotter and Glickenhaus are the two out of the five of them that really stick out. Because obviously Ferrara went national at a certain point, when he stopped doing like King of New York and Driller Killer and things like that, and he started to make bigger movies for the studios. And obviously Cohen is all over the place. And obviously Lustig, while he does the Maniac Cop trilogy, which is set in New York, and he does Maniac, and he does what was the other one I mentioned that Lustig had done?
Vigilante,
that's it. Yeah. While he does those movies, he then, for the rest of his career, I mean, most of Maniac Cop 2 and 3 are filmed in LA. Relentless, I think, is filmed in California. And a couple of his others, I believe, are out in California. So I think the only two who kind of stay exclusive to New York are probably, or more or less exclusive to New York, are Glickenhaus and Henenlotter. And even Glickenhaus, like The Protector, a lot of that's filmed in Hong Kong, and McBain, obviously, I think is filmed... Where was that filmed? Oh, it's filmed in the Philippines. All right, yeah that makes more sense.
That's it, yeah. Saranac Lake, New York, and Brooklyn Bridge, New York. So, yeah, it was primarily New York and the Philippines for McBain.
But for me, it's the iconic imagery of New York. I mean, Glickenhaus, in just the few movies we're talking about, he gets to do that incredible...
Some great, over, aerial shots of New York, especially in Shakedown.
Yeah, and McBain. I mean, the opening titles of McBain after the Vietnam opening has that wonderful, country and western song played over a nighttime shot of New York, which I was thinking that this is the sort of complete antithesis, yet still as beautiful and brilliant as the opening of Manhattan. Woody Allen's, famous Rhapsody in Blue with the fireworks and black and white New York. Glickenhaus, on the other hand, he's got no time for that. He wants, sweeping helicopter shots in bold colour with, a mad country and western song playing over the top of it.
I'd like to see a shot, done like Manhattan, but from James Glickenhaus movies.
Yeah.
Little shots. Rhapsody in Blue still, but, Sam Elliott.
Just of all the scummy bits.
Sam Elliott walking down 42nd Street eating a hot dog.
Yeah.
Jackie Chan.
On the East River Chase.
Fucking keys.
Yeah.
And just a shot list like that. Throwing a bit of Bill Lustig and Joe Spinell in there as well. And you've got, the alternative Manhattan.
Yeah, I mean, the only sort of big Hollywood movie that I can think kind of uses New York in the way that Glickenhaus did is probably something like Die Hard with a Vengeance, where you have bombs going off in New York, you have the car chase going through Central Park, you have the subway crash, you have some iconic bits of New York City, in an action setting.
Yeah.
Which is what Glickenhaus does so well. I mean, The Protector has that amazing East River boat chase, which, like I was saying to you on the commentary, I have no idea what that would cost you to do that now. I mean, even if you could do it now, even if health and safety allowed you to do it now, but it's an insane East River boat chase that ends with a massive explosion in the bay. Yeah, in McBain, you've got him fishing by the Statue of Liberty. You've got him welding at the top of the Brooklyn Bridge. You've got them shooting a guy and throwing a guy out of a window down onto a parked car in, I believe, the Lower East Side, because I believe they're on Avenue B. Because the bodega across the road is like the Avenue B Deli or something, which would be the Lower East Side. I mean, that stunt in McBain where they're hanging the guy seemingly over or off the top of a really high skyscraper is ridiculous, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
I can't think of another movie where you see anything like that done for real. I mean, what is it? Because obviously there's lots of movies from the 70s and 80s and 90s that do stunts for real and whatever, but there's something about the way Glickenhaus does them And I'm thinking about that stunt of him dangling the guy over the building. Obviously, a lot of his explosions. The stunt in Shakedown where he falls down the light pole.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yeah, that's a great stunt.
Front of the cinema, over the top of 42nd Street, seemingly. Like, why is it that they look more real? Why is it that they kind of look more dangerous and more real and just more exciting than, say, a big stunt in a Hollywood movie? I mean, is it just seemingly because you know that Hollywood movies have more money? Or is it that you don't expect to see them done in New York? Or is it that you just don't expect to see them in a B movie like this?
You certainly don't expect to see them done in New York. And, you know, it just looks a bit... It looks a bit too polished when Hollywood does it.
Right.
You know, it's all sort of done, not to say that the shot's not great in Shakedown, because I think the film looks great. It's probably my favourite of his films. It just looks great. Everything about it looks really good.
Yeah. I think a recent movie, dude. You know, a recent movie that kind of does it. Again, I know that a lot of it was filmed in Philly, but a recent movie that has a go at doing it is Jason Statham's Safe.
Yes. Yeah, I mean that could be like, you know, if Glickenhaus was still working, you'd think that was one of his films.
It's got that vibe to it, hasn't it? I'm thinking of the car chase. I'm thinking of the fight on the subway. I'm thinking of the...
You just think filmed on location.
Yeah, rather than in a set.
You know, when they go into, like, you know, in the Exterminator or Shakedown, they go into the cinemas or anything, you don't think, oh, they're in a set.
Right.
You know they're in those places.
Yes.
And that's the difference. You know, filming on location... it just costs a fortune to do now.
It strikes me that maybe things like the interior of the cinema foyer and the interior of the brothel and the Exterminator and some other interiors are maybe sets.
Yeah. But they don't feel like sets.
No, they don't.
I don't
they're
think
lit
they
very
look
well,
like
and
sets.
they look very well, yeah. In fact, I haven't checked that. Does he use the same cinematographer and everything? Let me just check that out, because, I mean, he's certainly got a look, hasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to believe that if I went back to that cinema in Shakedown and had a look in that little cabinet, I might find Sam Elliott's toothbrush and toothpaste.
So the guy he uses for McBain is the guy who also shot Basket Case 2 and Frankenhooker, but doesn't shoot any of other Glickenhaus films.
But it's kind of like they all use the same crew.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine so. I mean, the other part of Glickenhaus's career before he left movies altogether was production. He did production with Shapiro Glickenhaus. And yeah, so he produced the Maniac Cop trilogy, which look amazing. And there's another series that are filled with kind of jaw-dropping stunts. I mean, especially some of the large burns and window falls. I mean, in Maniac Cop 2, there is a window fall with a guy on fire, which I can't think of having seen in any other movie where, like, a guy does not only a large drop, but also while he's on fire.
I mean, with the Maniac Cop films, it's as though he was probably on set, Glickenhaus saying, you know, lending what he'd do with like a big action scene. You know, like there's a few hands working with that film. So, you know, I wouldn't be shocked if... Well,
there's also Spiros Rosatos or something like that. I'm probably murdering his name, but the stunt coordinator who's gone on to be absolutely fucking huge. And he cut his teeth on Maniac Cop series, basically him and Lustig, and maybe Glickenhaus as well, I don't know, but him and Lustig basically coming up with, you know, what's the most insane shit we can possibly do for the budget that we've got, you know what I mean?
Yeah, everything in the budgets for these films is up there on the screen.
Oh, yeah, no, completely. Like, these filmmakers, you know, and I imagine some of it may have been like guerrilla tactics, not paying for permits, running around the street, getting what they could. But each one of these guys, whether it's Cohen or whether it's Lustig or whether it's Glickenhaus, gets the money up on the screen almost from frame one. I mean, there isn't a beginning of a Glickenhaus movie that isn't exciting. I mean, the Exterminator starts with a massive explosion.
And that great special effect with the head just rolling.
Yeah, the wobbly head that as it's sliced very gently with a machete kind of flops over. Yeah,
that was, for years, that was cut in England.
Yeah.
And somehow a DVD got released and it was uncut. They sent out the wrong DVDs and they're uncut.
Nice.
And I was trying to find it for years. I finally found it in a Woolworths for about $5.99. So I took it home, watched it, and that first 5 minutes, as soon as I saw that head roll off, I was just like, oh, fuck.
Yeah. It's just so awesome. And then you've got obviously the first, something ridiculous, like the first 15 minutes of The Protector is just action sequence after action sequence after action sequence. Culminating with the East River boat chase and the big explosion. But before that, you've had the shootout in the bar. And before that, you've had the hijacking of the van. I mean, the hijacking of the van is not necessarily like action to begin with, but it's, it's a dark, moody, dramatic scene. And then we're into the shootout, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's with the start of The Protector, with that hijacking of the truck. It's as though Glickenhaus is going, oh, those Italian films set in New York. I could do one of those if I wanted to, because I'm going to put a little bit in now.
It literally, like, nothing that happens in that opening sequence, and we were talking about this in the commentary. The midgets and the punks and the.
Because you don't see anybody else like that through the rest of the film.
Through the rest of the movie. No. Even the guys who are then the crime spree guys in New York just wear boiler suits and have beards. That's balaclavas. They're just generic
they
guys.
just look like a regular gang, but you've got the time bandits robbing a truck.
The punk time bandits. It's like, it's completely bizarre. But no, I was just looking up the cinematographer for Shakedown is John Lindley, who shot some incredible stuff. Just from the movies we've covered on the Diner, he worked with James Woods on Badger the Assassin and on, where was the other one that he did? True Believer, which is another good New York movie, actually, True Believer. There's not much action in it, but it's a good New York movie in terms of shooting in real locations. Shakedown he does with Peter Weller. He then goes on to do stuff like Sleeping with the Enemy, Father of the Bride, Sneakers, Money Train, Pleasantville. Like, he then goes big time, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Just A-list films.
But it may be, that Lindley was a guy that the studios handed out, like when Glickenhaus, because I think Shakedown was a studio movie, I would imagine, rather than just an indie. I mean, it looks too big budget to be a studio movie.
I mean, with Shakedown, you've got Peter Weller coming in, off of, I think it was made after RoboCop, wasn't it?
Well, it's 88, and RoboCop was 87. Yeah, so this is the. So he does the Tunnel, film. But he does Shakedown and Leviathan, and then Cat Chase, and then RoboCop 2.
Yeah, so he's got one of the biggest actors of that time period.
Yeah.
Coming off RoboCop into the film.
Well, that's the other thing. He works with some cracking people. You've got Walken and McBain. McBain, that's the other thing. McBain, there is more things explode and more people die in the opening of McBain than possibly any other movie.
McBain is basically Glickenhaus going, everything I've wanted to do in a film, I'm going to throw in here.
But the one thing about McBain that doesn't make any sense, and it's good because we're now going to be talking about casting and things, is that while it's undeniably fun to see Walken attempt to do like a big leading man action role, even though Walken is notoriously against guns, as is, believe it or not, Sam Elliott. I know everyone thinks that Sam Elliott is like, a big old cowboy who's probably a Republican and everything else. Sam Elliott is completely against guns. He hates being, like, when interviewed about Roadhouse, he was sort of saying, well, I did it because some you do for the money, but he was talking about the producer of the movie, and he was saying, and I really loved working with the producer of Roadhouse and stuff like that, but I don't like violence, and I don't like guns, and I don't like gory, bloody movies. That's not why I got into the business. Yet he's known for, in my world, Shakedown, Roadhouse, and Tombstone. Like they're the movies he's known for, he's not known for whatever dramas he's done.
I think Cowboy.
Right.
Look at Sam Elliott, I think Cowboy.
Yeah.
He looks like he was a sheriff in the Old West, and, he's been frozen in ice.
In Tombstone, he's just impeccable. He's just incredible in Tombstone. I mean, him and Russell just make that movie hands down for me.
Sam Elliott's great. He's great. He's great in Shakedown.
Yeah, he is.
You've got the two. It shouldn't work. A lawyer and a copper, teaming up to take down the bad guys. I mean, usually those two characters are usually at odds in every movie that you see.
Yeah.
But
they're taking down crooked cops, aren't they? So it works.
They're taking down crooked cops. But that's a film. I watched it again before we recorded. I was thinking, why didn't this get a sequel?
Oh yeah, no. I mean, it's in terms of like sort of great one-off buddy movies that didn't get a sequel. It's up there with Tango and Cash for me, completely and utterly, in terms of witty banter between the leads. A great, cool kind of plot, ridiculous stunts. I mean, the ending of Shakedown is just... I mean, what was Glickenhaus thinking? I mean, he's clearly thinking utter genius thoughts. He's clearly thinking, well, fuck it, I'm just going to have him jump onto the wheels of the plane and fly around the plane.
Yeah, shoot the engine and then throw a hand grenade on.
Yeah, I mean...
It's fantastic.
It's, and again, another stunt that's seemingly done. I mean, obviously done with a bit of blue screen, but seemingly done over the Manhattan Bay there, or harbour rather. Sorry, the Manhattan Harbour there. But the casting of McBain is just one of the weirdest groups of people you could ever put in a movie like that. You know what I mean? Because what's interesting is it's a fairly... like when you look at Rambo 3 and Rambo 4, it's a fairly kind of precursor to that, because it's an ex-Vietnam vet who goes and fights a war that isn't his, but he goes and fights it for like honor and friendship and blah, 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 blah. And he also goes and fights it because the US won't fight it themselves. Like, he has to send his bunch of hobo mercenaries with him, right? Who all dress like they're on vacation. You know what I mean? Like, for most of the movie, McBain wears a Hawaiian shirt, which is like the least undercover thing you could do in the jungles of
at the end, they're all sort of, got the combat gear on, and he's just walking around with like a black sweater on.
Black sweater on, right.
He's like, I'm going to wear this tonight.
I'm going to bust into El Presidente's palace and take it over like that. Pow! It'll be great. You'll love it.
One of the best bits in McBain is, when he finds out that his mate's been shot and he's in the diner and he's just watching TV.
Yeah.
And he says, we warn you now, some of the what you see can be quite disturbing. And he gets shot through the head on TV, like, wouldn't you censor any of that? That's not a little bit disturbing. That's really disturbing.
And it's typical Glickenhaus fashion. Because the other thing that unites Glickenhaus movies is that when someone gets shot, they don't just get shot. Their body explodes. And if he can propel someone through a window, he'll propel them through a window with one shotgun blast. And in fact, in The Protector, propel someone through the window where they just get shot with a pistol.
Yeah,
like a handgun.
There's a lot of people who say, oh, Superman. Yes, Richard Donner made me believe a man could fly.
Yeah.
Glickenhaus, he made me believe a man could fly.
Yeah. And I love, definitely. I mean, out of a window when shot in the chest by a handgun.
That guy goes fucking flying.
He goes miles. There's even a bit in McBain where the same thing happens, although at least that's with a shotgun. But there's a bit in McBain where they bust into the drug house to steal some of their money, and he shoots someone in the chest with a shotgun. He goes flying out of a 5-story window and like crashes down onto a car below, and then people start looting his pockets. It's so cool.
New York, 1990.
I know, right? So much fun. But no, so for me, like the things I love about Glickenhaus is the extreme action. And that comes from explosion, because everything explodes. I mean, in Blue Jean Cop or Shakedown, Sam Elliott fires his Magnum gun at a motorbike. That explodes. Then he fires his Magnum gun at a car. Just fires it. Doesn't like aim for the engine or anything. Just fires it at the car. Then the car explodes. Just because that's what a gun does to a car, clearly.
Yeah, but when they're chasing them through the street, and they're on that motorbike, he's just thinking, "This is New York." I mean, if he's
Weller's on the back of it. Weller's just Weller goes, "You drive, I shoot," and I'm thinking, "You've just picked up a gun, pal. Shouldn't Weller drive and Elliot shoot?" But no, they go for the other way around, and Weller is a maniac on the back of a bike with a handgun.
Yeah. He's just like he's shooting away. It's like I really want to believe that he didn't get any permits for it.
Yeah, I just want to believe he just fucking did it. Just set up some cardboard boxes and just did it.
Yeah, they just turned up and there was a couple of coppers going, "What the fuck is going on?" And all of a sudden, Peter Weller and Sam Elliott driving down the street shooting at a police car.
Because you know the scene in Maniac, the Bill Lustig movie, where they blow Tom Savini's head off when they're like in Lover's Lane or whatever. That they didn't have any permits to shoot that scene. So they had a guy jump on the hood of a car, shoot through a windscreen, and blow up a dude's head, and they didn't have any permits to shoot that. Which is
Did they actually use a real gun to shoot the
head open? I think so, probably. Unless they did it with caps or something set inside the head. But I know they used Savini because they didn't have time to mould anyone else's head. So they just said, "Oh, well, we'll have Savini as the actor because it doesn't matter. He's going to get his face obliterated." And weirdly, someone pointed out to me the other day when I was talking about this subject about American New York filmmakers, the other group of people who shot New York in this way were the Italians.
Yeah.
Obviously Fulci did like the New York Ripper and the opening of Zombie and things like that. That's
an iconic, with the boat coming into New York. That is really good. I always forget that, but yeah.
Oh no, I love that. Like the eerie abandoned boat that's just floating in the harbour there. I love that. I think that's really creepy. I think that's awesome. There's also Dr. Butcher MD, and I forget what that was also called, Zombie Holocaust or something. It's called something else. But that's filmed in and around New York. Not as much of an exciting movie, but as Zombie by any means. In fact, it's no good at all. But a lot of good New York shots in it. You've got what's that other one? Contagion. The Alien ripoff has a lot of early scenes in New York.
I've never seen that. I've never seen that, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so no, there are some Italian movie makers out there as well. But no, it's long been, if I could put together, I've spoken to Lustig, I've spoken to Glickenhaus. If I could put together my kind of dream documentary, it would be, like Machete Maidens Unleashed or like Not Quite Hollywood, like one of those documentaries. It would be about the B movies made in New York in the 80s. Because I just think there's something about them that is...
They just feel real.
Yeah, they're not praised enough. Like they're not. And yet, if you put up a picture like I have been of the movies I've been watching, if you put up a picture from any of those movies, people are like, "Oh man, I've got to see that again." Like they're in people's minds. It's just people don't go out and watch them all the time. You know what I mean? Or talk about them or love them in the way that they should. But they are terrific films.
Now, New York has a new weapon. He's a cop with his own way of enforcing the law. His own way of fighting crime. Meet New York's new weapon. Jackie Chan is the Protector.
But yeah, the cast of McBain, there couldn't be a more awkward cast. None of them seemingly want to do any of the action. They all look incredibly awkward. And yet, it's arguably Glickenhaus's most action-packed, kill-heavy, explosion-heavy movie today.
Yeah, I think if the cast was probably more action-oriented, I know you got Michael Ironside in there, but if you'd have sort of got the cast of, say, a film like Extreme Prejudice,
right?
People would talk about it. It's still a great film, even with the cast that's in there. I mean, it's kind of a similar film to The Bad Pack.
Yeah, only good.
But yeah, it's Bad Pack's absolute shit.
If the Bad Pack cast were in this and at the top, were in McBain and at the top of their game, that might work.
Yeah, but it just and with the cast he's got in McBain, it's great. I mean, you got Christopher Walken shooting a jet fighter.
Yeah, with a handgun.
With a handgun.
Yeah, through a seemingly closed window and at high altitude and at high speed. I mean,
just to even think about that.
Yeah.
And write it is genius. Then to go, we're filming that scene today.
Yeah.
They must have been looking around going, are we really filming it? Yeah. This is what I want to show. I mean, it's fucking incredible.
Also, think of the aerial photography in that movie. I mean, okay, no, it's not Top Gun, but it's on the budget, pretty fucking good. The aerial photography.
Everything's on screen.
Yeah, completely. I mean, because I'm not thinking so much of necessarily that sequence, but if you look at the external sequences of, like, is it Red Leader 1 or Red Leader 2 or whatever his name is, and if you look at the external... Look, just the fact that he has 3 jet fighters. You know what I mean? Just like, oh, okay, now Glickenhaus has 3 jet fighters at his disposal. All right, well, here we go. You're just along for the ride. And, I mean, that's the other thing we should talk about is that he writes these movies as well. You know what I mean? Like, it's not just like Glickenhaus shows up and is an explosive expert for hire.
Yeah.
He writes most of these movies. He wrote The Exterminator. He wrote The Protector. He wrote Shakedown. He wrote McBain. He wrote Slaughter of the Innocents. I mean, he wrote The Soldier. So these are from the... I mean, he's an... people might laugh, but he's an auteur. He writes, directs, and produces his own movies. They are quintessentially his films, like no one else could make them. So, he's an auteur as much as anyone is, as much as Scorsese is, as much as John Carpenter is.
Well, with Scorsese doesn't... Did he write many of his films?
Yeah, he wrote Age of Innocence, Goodfellas, Mean Streets. Who's that knocking on my door? Casino, he wrote.
Well, that's what me.
All I'm saying is Glickenhaus, he's an auteur.
No, he's just definitely be thought of in the same sort of... obviously he's not had as much...
He wrote the lyrics to Christina's song in McBain, so come on.
There you go then. Scorsese can go fuck himself. I know I was right.
I'm just saying that people might watch these films and be like, whatever, they're B movies, action movies, whatever. And don't get me wrong, that's one of the main reasons I love them. But I think there's some more to be said about them, and I think that my list of things I love de Glickenhaus is his action, violence, stunts, explosions, all that. The way he shoots New York and the stuff he gets away with filming in New York. And the sort of eclectic fucking actors that he's worked with that are just bonkers left field decisions but work every time in a sort of delightful way, if not an authentic way.
Yeah.
I mean, the way that Weller is in the courtroom in Shakedown is so far from being realistic attorney. I mean, he just shouts at people and gets away with it. Meanwhile, his DA girlfriend just goes, I object, to everything he says.
Yeah, I mean, it's the weird thing. You should really hate Peter Weller in Blue Jean Cop. He's cheating on his pregnant girlfriend.
Is she pregnant? Oh, yeah, I forget that bit. Yeah, okay.
She gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And she sort of says at the end, she says, I lost the baby. And he sort of stands up and basically, you don't see it, but what he basically says is, that's good news, because I'm going now.
Yeah, I'm going to fuck off now, right? Yeah, exactly, yeah.
I'm going to go and live with my swish bird in a penthouse that's overlooking Central Park.
Yeah, which even a DA could never afford in a million years. Also, she's only just been made the DA, but she says, did you miss my apartment? Which means that she had that even before she was the DA.
It must have been like a rent thing, like in for Monica and Friends.
I like to believe that it's Glickenhaus's apartment.
It probably was.
It probably is, still.
Yeah. Yeah,
I mean, that seriously, even when the city was coming down around its ankles and blowing up and everything like that, and full of crime, even then, an apartment like that is millions of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, he's clearly a New Yorker who loves his city. Because for what budget he had, he could have gone and filmed somewhere else and probably, spent a lot less. But he wants to show off New York.
And he does. I mean, the scene from her balcony, which is shot at the best kind of time, it's just as summer goes into autumn. The Central Park looks beautiful. The Statue of Liberty, when he's fishing in front of it, looks amazing. New York in the beginning of McBain looks amazing. Even the meatpacking district and all that looks great the way he films it. There's even something nice about the way he films, like the slums in the Bronx or whatever that shootout's meant to happen in the Exterminator. And the Exterminator. Watching it again the other day, I realised just how much it owes to Taxi Driver. It kind of does owe a lot to Taxi Driver. I mean, Taxi Driver doesn't necessarily have the revenge element, but once he's avenged Steve James's death, or Steve James's initial paralysing, and then later...
It's a horrible scene.
Oh, yeah, that's another really horrible fucking scene. Once he just becomes a vigilante, it's kind of like a sequel to Taxi Driver. It's as if Travis Bickle shot all the people at the end of Taxi Driver and didn't get shot himself, and then went home and became the Exterminator.
It's like Travis Bickle and Paul Crowson had a bastard love child.
Yes.
That was Ginty.
That was Robert the Man Ginty. Robert Squinty Ginty, as I like to call him.
Yeah, and he became the Exterminator.
Yeah, but if you think about it, he's an armed vet, so he is in Taxi Driver. He's disgusted by the filth on the streets and the violence and crime that he sees. Sorry?
He's still willing to fuck a prostitute in it, though.
Yeah, although once he finds out that she's been soldering ironed about the tits, he thinks twice about it.
Well, you're not going to pay for that.
No. I demand my money back.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of half-assed prostitute you're giving me here. But when I come to a flea-bit brothel on 42nd Street, I demand high-quality sex, please.
Yeah, I want the goods.
I love the way that he hands over the sheets and he goes, these are the clean ones, huh?
Yeah, that's great.
As if to say, there are worse sheets out there. I fucking love that. But no, the other thing, the last part of sort of following on from his writing, Glickenhaus' writing, is the fact that a lot of the movies have really interesting politics to them. I mean, Maniac Cop does as well, about New York and about cleaning up New York and about so on. It's clear they want their city cleaned up.
Yeah.
But it's a double-edged sword because the way it's been cleaned up is not to everyone's taste. You know what I mean? Yeah. So in other words, they wanted all the dive bars and the dive cinemas and the the porno theaters, but they just didn't want all the homeless people and crack addicts. Yeah. But what happened was when you cleaned up the homeless people, the crack addicts and the pimps and the criminals in New York, so all the capitalist businesses moved in and got rid of all the flop houses and the porno theaters and blah, 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 blah. You know?
Yeah.
Because you can't have one without the other. You have to have the kind of... grime begets grime, but once you've cleaned it up, like, hopefully the clean begets clean, you know?
Yeah, it's what do you want more?
Yeah.
You know, the New York from the 80s compared to what, you know, when I came and saw you in New York.
Yeah.
Walking around it, you know, when I left yours after we recorded the episode, I think it was like, you know, about 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
I felt very safe walking down the street.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I mean, I walk around the village, the East Village at 4 a.m. when a bar kicks out. If I've been drinking, I'll go to a bar and I'll sit in a bar. And it's a dive bar. It's not even like... It's literally a block away from where in McBain they take out all those drug dealers and whatever. It's literally a block away from that where I go drinking. And I can walk around there at 4 a.m. It's absolutely safe as houses.
Yeah.
It's really not a problem at all.
But go back 20 years, you wouldn't be out at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Oh, fuck no. I wouldn't even live here. I'd be so petrified. I'd go to Times Square and I'd, you know, assume I was just going to get knifed by a pimp. You know what I mean? So there's always some political writing in there, which is interesting. And I'm thinking mainly about the sequence in McBain where they go into the drug house, they shoot all the drug guys, and Louis Guzman says, you know, look, man, like, I bet you think I'm peddling drugs to 8-year-olds or whatever, but do you see any fucking 8-year-olds in here? And these aren't guys who are out on the street. These are idiots from New Jersey. And I don't make the big bucks. All my big bucks get stolen and taken to this guy. I just get, like, pennies and whatever. And he says, all the guys who are working for me, they don't, you know, they've got two choices. They either work for, you know, $5 an hour in McDonald's, or they work for me and I pay them $200 a day. You know what I mean? So, like... He's trying to make his case for if corporate society was better, we wouldn't have these guys just trying to make a buck. And I'm not skimming to children, I'm just giving to assholes from New Jersey. Like, he tries to make his case for, look, we're all just trying to make a living, pal, and you've just come in here and shot a bunch of us for, like, $300.
Yeah, I mean, if you're selling... drugs are illegal, but if you're selling to consenting adults who want to get high, get fucked up,
right,
then it's kind of like, well, they do want the stuff,
right?
You know, I when I sell drugs to kids, I do feel bad about it.
I quite like as I'm looking at McBain now on IMDb, and I do quite like that although he's only referred to as Bobby McBain throughout the whole movie, that whoever entered it into IMDb has been very sensitive and written down Robert McBain.
Yeah, Robert.
No, I'm Robert McBain. None of this Bobby McBain shit. But you're called Bobby throughout the whole movie, Chris. Yeah, no, that's right, I am. I'm Bobby McBain. But, so yeah, he does whip in some social commentary. I mean, the whole of Shakedown or Blue Jean Cop is about, you know, the crooked criminal New York City Police Department, the fact that the theaters and fucking everything else is run down. Like, there is an underlying thing to it. He doesn't ignore it, you know what I mean? The whole of the Exterminator is about the streets and how they need to be cleaned up. Like, he's not... It's not like it's not in there. I don't think people would call me a madman for saying that he's trying to whip in a little bit of social commentary. I mean, no, he doesn't, like, go fucking mononc on her.
No.
He doesn't sit back in a polo neck and go, well, you know, it reminds me of Jack Titty's mononc.
Yes, look at this Chaplin walking around Times Square.
In city lights. It's not that. It's not strokey beard... You know, a highfalutin, whatever. It's just observational politics.
It's a good action yarn that, you know, makes you think a little bit.
Right, because in an action movie, what's incredible in McBain is we're not meant to feel bad that he's gone in and blown away a bunch of drug dealers and stolen their money. But actually, at the end of that sequence, Louis Guzman makes you feel really bad. You're like, shit, am I meant to hate McBain now? He just killed a bunch of people just trying to make a buck. In fact, one of them, he shot in the chest, who flew out of a window and hit a parked car.
These are people in, very dire situations who are just trying to feed the families. Yeah, right. They're doing it in not moralistic good ways, but you can't shoot them all, can you? Because some of them are literally just trying to put food on the table.
Then there's that other questionable scene where Walker pretends to be Israeli to get money out of the mob, which I don't know where that comes from, but that's some kind of commentary that, I won't be going into with it. So, Glickenhaus, what is it about you and the Israeli? Tell us your true feelings about them. I can't tell from that scene whether he respects them as a fighting force, because he goes on about Munich and how they killed like 3 generations of the people, or whether he is absolutely petrified by them, or whether he sees them as a negative. I can't tell from that scene what it's meant to be.
I think it's probably just...
or whether he's like comedy, where he's like, oh, the Jews, like, I can't quite tell.
I think it's probably just walking saying, I'm going to do this as an Israeli today, James. And you can't really say no, because it's walking.
Well, no, the idea from a scripting point of view is saying who's more terrifying than the mob to the mob, and it would be, Israeli commandos. You know what I mean? Like, they're the most terrifying fighting force on the planet, seemingly, is Israeli commandos. So we'll make them Israeli because that's going to scare... Like, to me, if I was a mob boss, it would scare me enough that they'd strung me up on a loose-fitting chair with some bungee cord above a fucking high-rise. Like, that would scare me enough. I wouldn't need to care who they were. I'd be like, yeah, take all my fucking money. But yeah, it's interesting. His writing is interesting. His filmmaking is interesting. And I only wish he'd made more movies.
Yeah. He's still got this... Could still make some great films.
I mean, I know he loves his cars, and he's been into his Ferraris for like the last few years. I think he's got like a special Ferrari that's been designed and made specially, and blah 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 blah. That's won a few races or whatever. I don't know, but yeah. You kind of wish that... I mean, I understand he's living the life now, you know what I mean? Like, he's got his money, and he's got his cars, and, he doesn't need to be on a film set anymore blowing stuff up to get excitement. He gets to whiz round tracks, like crazy tracks in Germany and Italy and England and US and stuff at 300 miles an hour, whatever, 200 miles an hour, whatever. He gets to do that, and whatever, that's his life, so that's fine. But you can't begrudge the man. But
no, it's because he's made some great, it's a small set of films that he's made, but they are action classics.
Yeah, I mean, I've only seen clips of The Soldier, and I've only read the description of Slaughter of the Innocents. But they're 2 movies that I'm just fucking dying to see.
Yeah, I mean, and as well, they could have all been franchise starters. I mean, there was only a sequel made to The Exterminator, and that was done by Cannon. But Protect could have had a sequel. McBain definitely could have had a sequel. Shakedown could have had a nice, healthy franchise, bringing Sam Elliott and Peter Weller back a few more times, because them 2 together on screen was just fantastic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I can't get enough of Weller and Elliott. I mean, I sat here yesterday, watched McBain and The Exterminator back to back. I'm halfway through Shakedown now. I'll finish that. Then I'm going to watch The Exterminator 2 with Ginty, because the night before that I watched The Retaliator, also known as Program to Kill, with Ginty in it, which was just awesome. I've got this weird thing about Ginty. Even though he's not a very good action star, I just really like Ginty. I just think he's a bit awesome. And I think it may have something to do with the fact that he's just called Ginty. I don't know.
I've only ever seen him in The The Exterminator 1 and 2. There's probably a few other films that he's been in that I've seen him in. But one or the other one called Cop Target from 1991.
Is that good? Is he good in that?
Yeah, I remember liking it.
Cop Target. I need to write that down.
Directed by Umberto Lenzi.
Oh, wow, it's going to be great then. But he's in one with Williamson as well, where he gets to wield White Fire. He's in with Williamson.
Yeah, I think I might have that somewhere on DVD.
He plays Boris O'Donnelly, and he gets to wield a chainsaw at one point.
Well, there you go then.
So Ginty with a chainsaw. I might just have to go on a Ginty run. I might have to do that because I don't have to work tomorrow now. So why the fuck not? Let's just Ginty it up to the max. And I'm also going to try and find some more Glickenhaus. But I think that what I hope this. What I want to say, though, from this episode is get into these movies, watch Glickenhaus's films, definitely watch them, the ones that we've been talking about, or any that you can find. But from that, realize that there's some really great jumping off points. You can go to the other New York guys who used, obviously, a lot of the same actors, a lot of the same crew. You can jump to the blaxploitation movies that were shot there, Shaft, Hell Up in Harlem, movies like that. You can watch other Ginty movies, which are all, I would say, worth checking out. You can watch Larry Cohen films and all sorts. Like, you can really jump off and discover a whole fucking world off the back of Glickenhaus's stuff.
Oh, yeah. Definitely. It's a door opener.
Yeah, just look at the movies like Steve James made, because Steve James is in The Exterminator, he's in The Soldier, and he's in McBain.
He had a really good action career.
Steve James, it's so sad how he passed.
Yeah, he was American
Ninja.
If he was still with us, he'd be in The Expendables.
Yeah, I same with Ginty.
Yeah,
I'd love to see a Ginty, James, Dudikoff, Williamson.
B-movie Expendables. That'd be awesome. Directed by Glickenhaus.
I just do want to see Glickenhaus direct more stuff. I just do.
How well he filmed New York in that sort of gritty area, gritty times.
I just know he wouldn't be able to do it nowadays. Not him personally, but New York would all be like, "Man, you can't film here, and it's going to cost you this much to film there." And
he could have made, like in the Batman films, he could have made a perfect Gotham. How well he filmed.
Yeah.
Streets.
Yeah, definitely.
Sam Elliott as Batman. You just see his tash under his Batman mask.
Not only that, dude, but did you know that he also produced Tough and Deadly with Billy Blanks and Roddy Piper in it?
Yep.
I mean, without Glickenhaus, there are some serious action and horror movies we just wouldn't have today. And Ring of Steel with Joe Don Baker in it.
Well, there you go then.
And
Matthias
Hughes. Look at that right there. And Carol Alt, whose father invented the Alt key. Which is a true story.
Yeah.
But yeah, Glickenhaus, we salute you. We think you're awesome. And I just went recently to one of the films showing at the New York Lincoln Center, very prestigious. It's one of the strokey beard film places, and they were doing a retrospective of John Waters. I think that's awesome, because I love John Waters movies. That's great. Yep, do a retrospective of John Waters. But, come on, where is our Glickenhaus retrospective, people? It's New York. You're the Lincoln Center. He to me, he's as important to New York filmmaking, to me, as Woody Allen and Scorsese. He's just a different type of New York filmmaking. No, you can't sit around in a roll neck and discuss about, the mode of operation and the design of this and the blah, 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 blah. Like, you can't sit around and be all, like, highfalutin and poncy about it.
Yeah, I don't know how well he'd have directed Michael Caine stalking Barbara Hershey on the streets of New York.
It would have been awesome. He would have had
It would have been good, because he'd have been following her with a gun.
He would have had a Dirty Harry gun, and Barbara Hershey would go round to that artist's apartment, and it would explode, and then they'd be on the run, and then they would be joined by someone obscure and weird, like John Saxon or someone. would show up, and then they would, have to overcome some crooked cops by using, I don't know, Jet Li's face or something. I don't know. It would just be awesome. But no, you can't.
He's the best action director from that time who's shown us a different side of New York. And
I think as an action director, he's really bloody good. I mean, you get the odd dodgy effect because obviously the money isn't there. But I think in terms of like capturing action, he knows exactly where to put the camera. I mean, there was a shot in Shakedown when Weller is on the balcony or on the roof of that apartment. And the camera goes right up to him, over the top of his head, and seemingly out over the ledge, and then spins round as his girlfriend comes out of the French doors out onto the patio. Yeah. Like right over the ledge, seemingly. And it's not steady cam and blah, blah, blah. It must be on a crane or on a angle arm or something like that. But it was like a proper filmmaker's shot. Do you know what I mean? Like it was a proper thought out movement of the camera. It wasn't just, you see a lot of like we watch a lot of B-movie action, right? And the editing can be funny and the shots can be odd and whatever. But this, he really knows how to do it. I mean, watch the boat chase in The Protector. Watch McBain on top of the Brooklyn Bridge. See some of those shots and it's...
Oh, it's just one of the best action professionals there is.
Yeah.
And not only that, with just ordinary storytelling. Go back to Shakedown. It's a great story. The acting is really well done.
And there's no padding. It's lean. All of his movies are like go, 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 go. Like it's just, you know what I mean? There's no slow bits. You can really plow through them.
And not only that, but he does the best death of a dog story in any film.
Yeah, I could devote an entire hour-long interview to him, just how that came about. Because it's meant to be a serious, like... Weller comes into the bar, leans up into the bar, and he's talking about how I could have been a saxophonist, man. I could have played bass sax or tenor sax or whatever he says. I could have played bass sax all day and all night. Like, he's bemoaning the loss of his artistic integrity and his life and his creativity and everything. And instead I went to law school and I became a lawyer and blah, 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 blah. Weller goes on, right? And he goes, I thought I was going to be playing tenor sax and I'd find the love of my life. To which Elliot goes, oh, the love of your life, eh? And turns around and goes, says the line with a straight face, I met the love of my life, but I killed her dog before I could tell her. And you're like, okay, sorry, what? You met the love of your life, but you killed her dog. Okay, I've got to go deeper in. What do you mean he killed her dog? And he tells a story about how, like, they were watching Shakespeare in the Park. He was the only one with the umbrella, right? She invited him back to his apartment just after going, oh, you got an umbrella? We're at Shakespeare at the Park. Cool, you must be an educated, lovable man. Let's take you back to my apartment. Let's have some afternoon delight. Clearly was on the cards from this Shakespeare-loving hussy.
Yeah, I don't believe somebody ever went to see Shakespeare in the Park.
No, that Elliot loved at first sight. Right? He's there. The dog's there. He's playing with a ball, right? He bounces it once, the dog catches it, runs over to him, gives him the ball back. He bounces it a second time, right? And he goes, I could still hear the squeak of the dog's paws on the highly polished wooden floor. How was I to know she'd left the window open? The dog slides out of the apartment through an open window. I mean, it's been raining, so half the apartment's fucking ruined if she's left a window open. He slides across the floor, out of a window, falls 13 stories onto a parked car, and to add insult to injury, Elliot is then sick out of the window on top of the dog, and then just fucking leaves. She's only been in the bathroom 2 minutes. She comes out to find her apartment full of water damage, sick, and a dead dog 13 floors down. That's the story where he didn't tell the love of his life that she was the love of his life, even though they just met at Shakespeare in the Park.
See,
incredible. You couldn't write that. No, but he did. Glickenhaus wrote it.
Yeah. See, you say that he's not like Woody Allen, but Woody Allen would do that quite well as a scene.
But he tells it seriously. Like, Sam Elliott is pouring his fucking heart out to Weller about this fucking dog and this woman and Shakespeare in the Park and the rainy day and everything. Just incredible. Just incredible. Weller doesn't go, what? What? What are you talking about? You killed a dog.
Yeah. Is that true?
Yeah. I mean, it's what, and this is what I love about Glickenhaus, and this is why he is an auteur, and you have to call him an auteur. He does and writes whatever the fuck he wants to. I don't believe for a second I don't believe a Hollywood guy looked at his script and went, "You can't do that, Glickenhaus. We wouldn't like that here in Hollywood." I think Hollywood probably looked at his script and went, "Explosion, page 1. We love it. Explosion, page 3. Even better." And then by the end of it, they're like, "Oh my God, there was an explosion every 5 pages. Glickenhaus, you write your own check." You know, like, that's just what I imagine happened, because he kept there's like no sex in his film, so you can't even claim that there was like a lot of sex. There's obviously breasts in The Exterminator with the horrible mutilation the prostitute undergoes, but there's no real sex in his movies.
Yeah, it's not a titillating scene, is it?
No. There's no sex in his movies.
You've got to be really quick.
And there's no real like female characters, because all the female characters tend to be fairly paper thin and love interests at best. You know what I mean? But there is buddies, there is male stuff, there is action, and there is explosions, and that's enough to get it done. You know, that's enough to kind of make it happen. And good stories. I mean, he's not quite Larry Cohen when it comes to like a neat thriller story, but he's pretty close in terms of like the stories he wants to tell and the stories where he's coming from. I mean, you know, the most sort of wishy-washy story or whatever, the whole kind of thing, is probably The Protector, because that's the most kind of just stolen from a Bond movie type.
Well, you know, I'm sure Jackie Chan was in his ear. You know,
sure.
that was trying to break Glickenhaus into like the Hollywood A-list of action directors, and also trying to.
The Protector had titties and sex in it.
Yes, yeah, it did, yeah. And, you know, he was trying to break Jackie Chan into the world market as well.
Yeah.
So...
That movie had... See, the funny thing about that movie is it had a lot to do for its behind-the-scenes people, or for its actors, for its director, for its writer, whatever. That maybe there was more focus on that than there was on the story.
Yeah, I think there's probably a lot of politics behind the scenes on that one.
But again, it's got the Glickenhaus, like, curious casting of Aiello as Chan's right-hand man. Like, you just think to yourself, like, where'd that even fucking come from? Like, when you look at Chan, you go, "I've got the perfect sidekick for you, Jackie, Danny Aiello." Like, where does that... You know what I mean? We said in the commentary, like, Seagal would have been a better... It's too early for Seagal, though. It's 85. But.
Well, he's been around for 40 years. He could have done it.
Yeah, he was probably in Japan having the...
He could have had, you know, Sam Elliott.
You could have had anyone apart from Danny Aiello, and it would be more believable. The naked guy who plays the chicken... the businessman in The Exterminator who's fucking the young guy... in the brothel with just the towel on, he would have been a better sidekick for Jackie Chan than Danny Aiello. Ginty. Why wasn't it Chan and Ginty?
Yeah, Ken Wall from The Soldier.
Steve James.
Yeah. I'd definitely like Steve James.
But no, like, every movie just has some weird casting. Just some real... bonkers casting, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you got to love it. You've got to love it. When it works, it's Ginty and James and George in The Exterminator, or Elliot and Weller in Shakedown. And when it doesn't, it's Walken in McBain and Aiello in The Protector. And it still works in its own way. It just doesn't work in a a way one would expect.
One question you've got to ask him, dude.
Yeah.
Is did you ever film that scene from Shakedown as a flashback?
Which scene from Shakedown?
With the dog.
Oh, right.
Because if I was the money man, I'd have looked at that and gone, you've got to film that.
You've got a scene there, Glickenhaus, my boy, that you've not filmed yet. I want to see that dog slide across a wooden floor and out a window. I think children want to see that scene. Mothers want to see that scene. God damn it, everybody on the whole goddamn planet wants to see that scene. I imagine that probably happened.
Do you think when he threw up, he actually threw up onto the dog as it was laying on the cot?
I think he let out the window and threw up. Incredible. Just incredible. Wow. Well, that was the films of James Glickenhaus. Do we have anything else to say, sir?
I think we've covered everything. Bloke's a genius.
I'm telling you, he is an unsung auteur.
Yes.
I say that with no pretension.
I'd love him to make another film.
I'd love it to come out to retirement and it to, like, break Hollywood. So, in other words, like, he comes out of retirement and all of a sudden, out of the woodwork, you don't know this, but all of a sudden every studio head on the planet is a Glickenhaus fan. And we don't know this as viewers, but behind the scenes they've been begging Glickenhaus to come back for 20 years. You know what I mean?
Yes, Stallone's been like, I want to do the Expendables.
But, so Glickenhaus comes back and, like, the front page of Variety just says, no other films will be made. Glickenhaus returns to cinema or something like that. Or like Stock Press's Glickenhaus is back. And it's the front page of every newspaper in America for 10 consecutive months.
Yeah, there'll only be one film released in 2016. It's Jimmy Glickenhaus's comeback movie.
Yeah, and it's every single cast member from his previous films, and it's just explosions. For
just
2
explosions.
hours.
I definitely want to see the little perv in the towel come back.
He comes back, yeah. Do you want to know a weird Joss Whedon connection with Shakedown?
Go on then.
The guy who plays the guy on trial, the drug dealer.
Yes.
In Shakedown, played by Richard Brooks.
That's not Joss Whedon, is it?
Yeah, it is. No, he's also in Firefly.
He's a good actor.
He's an amazing actor. I want to see him in lots of stuff. He's also in Firefly in one as a character called Jubal Early in one of the episodes called Objects in Space. But that's not all. The New York cop that Weller is quizzing, and he says, "Where you go, you have a partner, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, we normally have a partner," and blah 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 blah, right? And when you found him, he was unconscious, right? And all that, and he's like shouting back at him.
Yeah,
that cop. He played the principal in Buffy for the first half of the first season.
He did, didn't he?
Yeah, he was the principal who got eaten by the hyenas.
Yes, I do remember him now. Yeah, obviously Whedon's a big fan of Shakedown.
Yeah. I'm not kidding. I think Whedon watched that and went, that's what we need in the Avengers.
Yeah. We need Sam Elliott in the Avengers.
Well, Sam Elliott could have been because he was General Ross in one of the Hulk movies. But they haven't brought Ross back, and then they changed him for the next Hulk movie into William Hurt.
Yeah, I don't think you need a Hulk when you've got Sam Elliott.
No, not with his mustache and his ability to hang off the bottom of planes without so much as a scratch.
Yeah, oh yeah, you don't get scratched.
Imagine that if Robert Downey Jr. went, he's like, we got a god, we've got a Sam Elliott, and then Loki just put down his staff and went, you know what, you're right, and then just threw himself out of a window and impaled himself on the top of a building or something. And you just went, oh, it's all over. What happened? Well, we told him we had a Sam Elliott. Oh, well, that explains it then.
Wow. How can you compete with the Sam Elliott?
Well, we can't. But it works for almost everyone that Glickenhaus has ever cast. Because, like Robert Ginty, there's no defeating Robert Ginty. Like Robert Ginty, he's not dead, really. He's just not working anymore. You know what I mean? Like Ginty's just living on an island somewhere. We don't know where, but wherever it is, it's crime-free, drug-free, and he's probably blowing up an android with a bazooka as we speak.
Yeah, with Steve James at his side.
Right. I like to believe that.
I thoroughly believe in that.
Yeah. Peter
I'm
Weller
a
as well.
Scientologist at heart.
I think Peter Weller should be... If Glickenhaus makes a new movie, Peter Weller has to be in it.
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to go on record. I want to see the Weller-Glickenhaus, reuniting.
Yeah.
I just... It's so... In all seriousness, dude, it's so difficult to be, like, this passionate about films like this. Because when I say that I'd want it to shut down Hollywood, I would want it to mean to everyone on the planet what it would mean to me if James Glickenhaus made another movie. Like, it would be, for me, like when Stallone made The Expendables, one of the most exciting movie events of my entire life would be seeing a new Glickenhaus movie. And I would want everyone to feel... I would literally want wars around the world to stop because Glickenhaus came out of retirement. Like, that's how much I just fucking adore his films. And that might sound ridiculous to some people, but it's true. It's like Original Gangsters 2. I want Original Gangsters 2 to be made so much, and I want people to love it so much. And the fact that they don't, and the fact that, Spike Lee and Zach Braff and people like that got fucking money for movies I couldn't give two fucking smelly turds about. But Fred Williamson can't get his movie financed, which has him and Pam Grier and Richard Randall. That...
Well, to be quite truthful, James Glickenhaus' Original Gangsters 2 is a match made in heaven, isn't it, really?
Yeah, because Larry Cohen made the first one.
Yeah, why did... if you got James Glickenhaus involved with it...
And Lustig directed Williamson in Vigilante.
Yeah, he needs to complete the circle.
And
we
not
should
only
really
that,
put that to... We should put that to Jason Roth.
And Henenlotter could then do Basket Case 4, where Williamson has like a little mutant bogey cousin in a basket.
We'll stick with the Original Gangsters 2 for a minute.
But no, I mean, maybe I'm being too... But do you know what I mean, dude? Like, there's something about... I'm just like... I love that I know people who love Glickenhaus as much as I do. And that makes me happy. Of course it does. But there's part of me that I want...
Yeah, but we've not experienced going to the cinema to see one of his films.
I want that moment that when his movie is announced, everything is solved. Like, kids stop getting leukemia,
The world's...
Churches around the world close because they're like, well, we can't compete with that. They just give up on being religious. They're like, fuck off. You get like... Or
how can we compete with that?
They don't give up on being religious. They start actually being religious and like caring for the poor and looking after them. Like they suddenly like the, you know what I mean? Like maybe
hearts.
Yeah, maybe the Pope and the way the Pope's being right now is because he knows something we don't know, and that Glickenhaus is working on a new movie.
He's working with Fred Williamson on Original Gangsters 2. We should definitely put that to Jason Roth.
Oh, can you imagine it though?
James. You should mention that in the interview.
It's like, why is... I get as upset when I think about, like, why is those guys from Original Gangsters 2, why are they not bigger? Like, look, don't get me wrong. Like, I like, Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman, or whatever. Like, I love the fact that African-American actors are now, like, in equal leading man roles and blah, 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 blah. But they wouldn't be there without fucking Williamson, right? They wouldn't be there without Roundtree. They wouldn't be there without Jim Brown. They wouldn't be there without those people. Like, why don't those people still have a career? That's all I mean. Like, why can't I go to a cinema when there's 24 screens and one of them be a fucking Williamson movie or a Greer movie or a, you know what I mean? Why? Just why?
Well, it's the same reason why fucking Stallone put all those young little twats in Expendables 3.
And ruined it.
Because you've got to sell to youth.
But ruined it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I was thinking back to the Exterminator when I at the start, because Steve James saves Robert Ginty's life, doesn't he?
He does, yeah.
And there's a thank you. Robert Ginty gives him his moustache.
Yeah, he does.
Because he's got clean shaven, isn't he, Steve James at the start? But Ginty's got a tash.
Yeah, look.
And as a thank you, he sort of goes, I'm going to give you my tash. And Steve James is like, cheers, mate.
Cheers.
That means a lot. I just thought about that. It's quite nice.
I think that's a great way to end this show.
It's friendship.
I think that's friendship.
You saved my life. I'd give you my tash if I could grow one.
I tell you what, if you saved my life, I'd give you my beard.
That is good, because I can't grow one for love and money.
I'd give you my beard. That's what I would do for you, sir. If you were dying and the only thing that would save you was my beard, I would...
It's a tough choice, but you probably...
I'd probably let you die. No, I'm kidding. I'd give you my beard. But is it? Do I give you my beard and then it never grows back? Only you can grow one?
I know,
or do I give you my beard and I can always grow another one, but you also have a beard? Because if it never grows back...
I'm dead.
That's a difficult... And then, years later, I'm sat in a bar in New York. I'm 80 years old. It's like, so wait a minute. Let me get this straight. One of your best friends in the whole world is dying right at your feet. And the choice is you give him your beard, or you never have a beard again. Or you don't give him a beard and he dies. And you didn't give him your beard.
And what happened? Well, you see, I've still got a beard.
And he's dead. But in honour to you, I have a beard so long that it goes out the door. I never shave again, ever, my entire life.
That it sort of, puts my kids through college.
Yeah. I get a deal with Beard Groomers Monthly as they're one of their top models. And I make billions and I look after your children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could live with that.
Yeah.
Well, wouldn't I be dead? Beardless and dead.
And then when they're all grown up, your children have accidentally gone to Bogota and got into lots of trouble. And they're like, the only way to save us, John, is if you shave your beard. Sorry, they're all dead. And you're back in the bar. So let me get this straight. 3 Goyles were about to get killed. And you could have saved them with your beard. Yeah, but it's my beard, isn't it? I can't believe you. Why do I drink with you, you crazy old fuck? True story. All right, Chief. Well, look, thanks ever so much for doing this last minute, and this should go up later in the week.
Right, see you later.
Bye now.
Bye.
The James Glickenhaus way. When your sad face is screwed with tears at the end of the day, turn that frown upside down with an explosion. That's the Glickenhaus way. The James Glickenhaus way. Whoa, and if everyone in the world took that sweet advice, Glickenhaus movie. Oh, yeah. And if everyone in the world took that sweet advice, modern films wouldn't be so very shit, but everyone would be very nice. Very nice. Blow everything up in your way. Why, that's what the Glickenhaus say. Live to fight another day. That is the Glickenhaus way. When you invite Christopher Walken out to play, that is the Glickenhaus way. When you make Jackie Chan's speedboat explode in the bay, well, that is the Glickenhaus way. When Maria Conchita Alonso wants to roll in the hay, that's another Glickenhaus day. When Robert Gigi finds thugs to slay, it's another Glickenhaus day. Hallelujah, house, house, do the Glickenhaus house, house, do the Glickenhaus house, house, do the Glickenhaus. House, house, do the Glickenhaus house, house, do the Glickenhaus house, house, do the Glickenhaus. House in a house, house, do the Glickenhaus, house, house, do the Glickenhaus, house, house, do the Glickenhaus. House, house, do the Glickenhaus house, house, so do the Glickenhaus house, house, so do the Glickenhaus today. When you're feeling down, no words left to say, yeah. Just blow up everything in your heart, and that's the Glickenhaus way. The James Glickenhaus way. The James Glickenhaus way. Hey, baby, come on. I'm feeling happy. I got them glinty blues. I'm feeling happy with those squinty ginty blues. I got them squinty ginty blues. I got them squinty ginty blues on a summer's day. I got them Glickenhaus blues. I got them Glickenhaus blues. I got them ginty blues. I got them ginty blues. I got them Glickenhaus blues. I got them Glickenhaus blues. I got them ginty blues all day. Oh, squinty, squinty, ginty, squinty, squinty, ginty. Like the show? Well, you can find our complete podcast archive over at amdpodcast.blogspot.com or aftermoviediner.com. You can send us an email at aftermoviediner@gmail.com, tweet us at aftermoviediner, or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/aftermoviediner. Or why not be a part of the show and leave us a voicemail over at speakpipe.com/aftermoviediner. You can also support the show a number of ways: by spreading the word to family, friends and co-workers, by writing us a review over at iTunes or TalkShoe, by purchasing some excellent diner merchandise over at cafepress.com/aftermoviediner, by donating on our website, by advertising with our website, or maybe you're a regular Amazon user. If so, then before you make a purchase, go to amdpodcast.blogspot.com, aftermoviediner.blogspot.com, or aftermoviediner.com and click through the Amazon banner ads. It costs you nothing extra, but they throw us a few coins for the trouble. Or, like the movies we cover, then buy them over at our personal Amazon store, also on amdpodcast.blogspot.com.
Really, thanks everybody for everything you continue to do, and please keep listening.
There are men, and then there are second unit podcast men. The podcast you've just been listening to is part of the Second Unit Podcast Network. Find all of our shows at 2upn.blogspot.com or on Facebook under the Second Unit Podcast Network. Our fantastic list of shows include Drunk on VHS, We Came from the Basement, No Budget Nightmares, The After Movie Diner, Dr.Action and the Kick-Ass Kid, and Bloodbaths and Boomsticks. Take one podcast into the shower. Don't be a blithering idiot, Alan. We can give you the multiple podcast cleansing system all in one place that your hair deserves. Our programming is available across all platforms, from iTunes to Podomatic, TalkShoe to Stitcher, so you have absolutely no excuse. Listen today, and a free naked person of your choice will be shipped from Thailand to your door in a matter of weeks. The Second Unit Podcast Network, bringing you the action and leaving the boring stuff to the other guys. Bloody hell. Who does a girl have to blow around here to get a decent beverage?